My coursework deadlines for music high-level students is basically a composition by the end of each term, and I stretch that a little bit for the first term because obviously students are feeling their way in the first term, and it's not a surprise if they don't really make that sort of deadline. And about March this year, in the second year, is the final deadline for the second year completion of the composition portfolio, which numbers 3 substantial pieces, like the one we started the concert with, that Achgill composed. A couple of weeks ago, the deadline was there for second year students, and it's no criticism of them if I tell you, Megan, I can see you sitting there. Megan has now dived under the chair. About a day before the deadline, Megan was still busily trying to write the second half of her final composition, the third portfolio piece, and there were a few others pushing it quite close to the deadline. They all made it, but it was touch and go, and that's the third piece. Colin was currently working and had almost completed his third piece in the last weeks, so his portfolio was almost done. He would have gone on to compose a lot more, as it happens. He worked with incredible facility and incredible speed, and he didn't really need very much help. I'd love to say that the compositions that he produced were the product of my teaching, but they weren't really. Certainly I gave him some advice and made some suggestions, and he went away and he acted on those suggestions. But the piece I'm going to play to you now, Colin never heard except through the MIDI system of the computer. So he never heard a live performance of it. And I was due to give that last Wednesday, and then that concert didn't occur at all. When Colin came up with this piece, this idea for the piece, he wrote about 10 bars, and the feature of the first 10 bars was a fairly boring, monotonous pattern, going like this over and over and over again. I said, Colin's terrible. You know, I've got a dog that could play the piano. And he said, hey, I got this great idea, he said. I'm not going to attempt the American accent, but it's quite funny. I got this great idea, he said. I want this piece to have that note, it's a B flat, going through every single bar from the beginning to the end. 4 minutes. I said, you're going to drive everyone nuts. And he said, well, I want it like a heartbeat going through the entire composition, never stopping, never pausing. And I said, okay, let's give it a go. I didn't think he'd pull it off. And I said to him very frankly, I said, you've got a real serious compositional problem here. And for the non-technical musicians amongst you, you can switch off for a moment now. And for those of you who are in higher level and standard level music, you can listen up. The problem with repeating the same note over and over and over again is twofold. Number one, it anchors you to a tonality via a pedal note, and that's a problem because how are you going to get like harmonic variety? And number two, he didn't just want the note to be repeated all the time. He wanted it to be repeated ba 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 continuously in this pattern. And I said to him, okay, I said, look, if you're going to try to pull this off, you have to be able to do 2 things. Number one, you're a fantastic percussionist. So around the regularity of that rhythm, see if you can provide huge variety in the rhythmic patterns you set against it. He said, well, that's a cool idea. And I said, yeah, I've been paid to do this job for a very long time. That's what I do, cool ideas. And I said, the other thing you can try to do is make that B flat not always part of the same note of a particular chord, like the chord of B flat major, for example. But to make it a sort of central tone in a constantly shifting harmonic pattern, or kaleidoscopic harmonic sort of menu. And when he came back with the first draft of the composition and played it to me, I was really quite blown away, because everything I'd said he should do, he not only did, but he did it much better than I could have imagined doing myself. I had some issues with the very opening because, and I said to him, my students will know this expression. If they get somewhere too fast or if they're in too much of a hurry, I say, it's my Valley's upbringing this. My dad used to say it to me all the time, you're spending your money right at the beginning of the week, and you've got to save some for the weekend. And I said, Colin, it's just you give us too much too soon. You need to slow it down. And then on the score, he typed in, slow burn, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, which he really thought was funny, which I didn't think was funny at all. And, later on, he changed the title. He crossed it out and he wrote a couple of edits on it. He said, Counterbalance plus a few minor edits, Colin. And if you look through the score, he changes a note on the third page from a B flat to an A flat. That's it. That's all the editing he wanted to make of this composition. There's one edit. And so it's a great pleasure to perform this piece. Listen to it carefully. It's fantastically well crafted. It solves that problem of the repetition of the note. You won't find it boring. And in the end, as it returns and returns into our sort of forefront of our ear, it becomes somewhat comforting, actually, this note, I feel. So on the table here, the first composition that Colin completed, the Dragon Boats for Percussion Ensemble, and the proper score of Counterbalance, plus another score, actually, and the text to this class song. And I'd like to give that to Colin's family at the end. At the end of this performance, I'm sure you're going to applaud. Please don't applaud me. Applaud your fellow students who have delivered the rest of the concert, and applaud Colin's composition. Thank you.